are just, there's a boredom, and I think, people are trying to figure out what the next steps are, what they're going to do. And I think for the most part, it's really hard to figure out what the next steps are. And everybody's looking around looking for the adult in the room. And that's my opinion on what's going on.
Well, there's nothing to do. Like when you're idle hands, right?
Idle hands are the devil's work.
The age-old saying, idle hands. There's nothing to do. Movie theaters are closed forever. Movie theaters are still closed, even though things are open. Hollywood's not sending movies out to get, that's an outlet people have. Bowling alleys, pool halls. I think golf is really the only thing you can do. And in some states, it's summer. It's 115 degrees in places. Nobody wants to do that, golfing and that. So gyms have been closed. How much of an outlet is that from a lot of people?
Huge.
Massive. Jiu-jitsu, freaking weightlifting, running, whatever. It's massive. And all that's closed for months. And then now they're like, well, you can open, but here's the stipulations. And it's still creating difficulties. So if you have no outlets, what's going to happen?
Right. So how do we fix it? How do we fix it? That's the $1 million question is. And we can spend all day on the riots, right? Yeah. But how do we fix, how do we get this from A to B? Somebody said to me the other day, we were talking, it was me, Coach Casey Halstead, jiu-jitsu coach out here, and I had jiu-jitsu cop on, and they said, what would you do? What would your solution be? I said, it's easy to say people just need to be nicer, but the flip side is, I think everybody, and I said this is in context to law enforcement, but I think everybody needs to gain perspective. I think 100%. Perspective is the most important thing, and if people could understand perspective, I think they would be better served. Gain some perspective on all things. And it's a tricky one, right? If you could wave a wand, what would you do?
Well, and it's interesting you said perspective. I just did a YouTube video on perspective because I think we need to have a perspective of everything, but we don't need to eat up all perspective as truth, right? A problem we have right now is everyone that is against us as we the people is using perspective to divide us. Little clips here, little clips there, without the entire picture.
Context.
Exactly. So if we're using perspective, as you're pointing out, we need to use get a perspective out of the entire truth and not just a snippet of the truth to gain what our perspective is of what that is, if that makes sense. I think in order to fix any of this, I talked to a doctor friend of mine he's in one of the major hospitals that's dealing with all the cases where I'm at, and he's like, yeah, man, we still need to stay inside. We still need to do all this stuff. And I said, listen, you're much, much smarter than me when it comes to the virus, right? And maybe in a lot of cases you're smarter than me in most things. But let me tell you what, as a doctor or a scientist, you're thinking one-dimensional about a problem, which happens a lot, right? Your specialty, you think about that specialty and how would you handle it? Well, I'm a doctor. This is a virus. Everybody stays inside until it goes away. Scientifically, that's the way to fix the virus, right? But we understand that on a different level, when you expand your perspective of things, you know that by doing that, we have the issues that you brought up: suicide rate, idle hands, not being able to do anything, and then we have so many other issues that could drastically outnumber the issues of just the virus itself, right? So by fixing the virus, you're creating double the problems everywhere else. So in reality, what we need, just like anything else, with anything, we need a group of people that has a perspective of their expertise to, doctor says, hey, we need to close everything forever until this is over. Somebody else is like a psychology major is like, we can't do that because then people are going to be, more depressed and more suicidal, and they're going to have marital problems, and we're going to have more domestic violence problems. We can't do that. So then the chief of police is like, yeah, he's right. That's this, whatever, and have a collective discussion between a group of experts in many fields and say, well, how do we mitigate this? Well, doctor says, well, here's an idea. We can close everything down for this amount of time and then, release it. And the psychologist says, well, that might work, but what if we did it? And it's a group of ideas, and you discuss it between that group, and you have an open-minded discussion on how to fix the problem.
Yeah, it's a moving target, right? So you have all these different factors coming into play, all these different things, but it creates the perfect storm, and that's what I want to get at with you, Mason. It creates the perfect storm of the ability for, whether you want to call it Antifa, whatever you want to call it, for people to get out there. And now you have all these competing platforms, and I've said it for a long time. I'm a huge proponent, especially on social media, of everybody having to use their name and be verified by using their name, because I think that the ability for people to hide behind a fake name is bullshit, and that contributes to the ability to put snippets and clips and crap out there. And I know it hurts certain segments of the community because they operate in the autonomy, but at the end of the day, everybody finds out who you are, right? If you have any, yeah. But I think having skin in the game is what makes the difference. Now, we create this perfect storm as a society. People are out of work. You have like 40% unemployment. People are out of work. People are looking for something to do. And you start to get these riots. And I don't think there's a person on the planet that doesn't condemn what happened. That's not the question. 100%. That's not even the question. The issue is, how do you justify? There was one woman that her husband, and there were a black family, that her husband was getting beat up outside their Orange Theory studio. I mean, how does this get justified on any level, in any place, at any time? And do you agree that the perfect storm was created for all this to happen?
100%. I often ask people, what do you think would have happened in the same scenario? Because we've had protests before, right? We've had incidents that garnered protests, and most of the time, there are times that it gets a little bit, things get damaged or whatever, but not to the extent that we've seen it, right? And I think that garners, you need to look at the fact that we've been locked up for 3 months in our house, right? And there's the people that are being violent, and, well, I shouldn't say that. I would say a majority of the people being violent and rioting and tearing stuff down have no clue why they're doing it. They just are like, oh, shoot, people are tearing stuff down. Like, one person tears something down, and everybody's like, oh, we're doing that now? Okay, cool. And then they go do it. And they don't have any idea. They don't know why this started. They got no clue.
I got to ask, how much do you think the profession is going to be hurt by this?
I think that only time will tell, but I think that it's scary to see what's going on right now, because the problems, listen, we've always had issues, like any business, any entity, any government establishment has issues that need addressing constantly. It's a constantly revolving, like, okay, here's a problem we have, how do we fix it? Okay, let's try to fix it this way. Here's this problem. Okay, let's try to fix it this way. Demonizing an entire group, as we know this by demonizing any group, is not going to make that group feel any better about doing what they need to get done. So I have and I've already seen it, like back when my dad was on the job, guys worked 40 years, right? They worked 40 years, 35 years. Now guys are like, I'm out, 20 and I'm out. It's not worth it. The job, there's always been people that hated you and wanted you dead. Like, you always had the risk of death, right? In terms of somebody just hating you, or a criminal or a murderer or a rapist or whatever you're trying to get into custody. You've always had that, always. The problem now is there's a lot of good people out there, lawful people out there, that are being convinced that law enforcement as a whole is bad. And that's going to force guys to be like, you know what? I just don't want to do this anymore. I've seen more in the last 2 years guys leave to go into other jobs that are not law enforcement than I've ever seen in the last 15 years. And that to me is scary.
Yeah, we've talked, I've talked. Go ahead.
How do you get the next generation to take on the job?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And I've talked to Tony Seminat about this, Real World Tactical. I talked about this with Jiu-Jitsu Cop the other day. We were in the car for quite a bit. We chatted. And I said, you always have badge heavy guys, right? That exists. That's just real. That's just real. And, I wasn't going to talk about this necessarily on air, but, Brian, Jiu-Jitsu Cop, if you're listening, we talked about this. I said, part of the issue is you have to be trained at a very young age, and it has to be pounded into your head when you go on the job or you're working, that every time you pull someone over, that is going to be the highlight or the low light of their day. That is going to be talked about 3, 5, 7 times during that day. And I think, Mason, it's just my belief, I think there's not enough emphasis in understanding that you're going to affect that person's day for the good or for the bad for the entire day. And I'm actually giving law enforcement what they think they don't want by saying this.
So that's an interesting point, because I had a conversation with, I think I had it with Someday Adventure on social media, but he used to be a cop and now he's not. He left for bad leadership in the agency. But we talked about something, and he said something that was pretty profound to me. And somebody asked me a question yesterday on a story, and I kind of used what he had told me. But we have this wolf versus sheepdog versus sheep analogy, right? That we use in law enforcement. And I think as a whole, there's guys, really great dudes, great cops that do the job right, but in the back of their head, they have this idea that every single time they pull somebody over and give a ticket, or every time they arrest somebody for a crime, no matter what the crime, that's the wolf, and you are the sheepdog protecting the sheep. But in reality, that's not the wolf. The wolf is the active shooter. The wolf is the murderer. The wolf is the rapist. The wolf is the pedophile. The wolf is,
capital crimes.
So many things. The person that you're pulling over for reckless driving isn't necessarily the wolf. They may be the sheep that's making a mistake in that moment in life. I think we forget, and I don't know if this is just something that's been handed out from generation to generation in the job, but we forget that people make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. And just because you made a mistake doesn't mean that you are the wolf. And that we should always, listen, I get it. Your most dangerous point in a career is traffic stops, 100%. That just is what it is. That's where most cops die, right? But that doesn't mean that because you're at the most risk that you can't be just as respectful as any other time. Right?
Yeah.
I take it like this. I take it as the Roadhouse effect, right? We've all seen Roadhouse, Patrick Swayze. You be nice until it's time not to be nice. Like overly nice. Like, and I remember always being, all right, hey man, how you doing? Knowing that if a gun comes out, I'm gonna have to take care of business. You can do that. It's possible.
And I just believe it's kind of like a lot of people have said, the Seattle experiment, give them the land. And I said this the other day to Brian. He goes, it's an interesting point. I said, I'm a true Republican, right? So what do true Republicans believe in? Less government, less intervention.
Right.
I don't believe for 1 second, and this is coming from a guy who's been through the process, academy, everything. I think too much emphasis when guys go out, and I'm going to say some things you can't maybe answer or get in, when guys go out on coming back with fruit, right? Because they justify that as you're working, right?
Right.
And I don't see the value. People could say it's a slippery. So they touch 1 2A law, and people freak out, right? We freak out because 1 leads to 2 leads to 3, right?
Correct.
You touch 1 First Amendment law, forget it, right? Game over. Like people are going to lose their fucking mind. My thing is, give the people what they want. Relax it a little bit. There are laws for their laws for their laws. You can pull someone over today, right now, any car, and find a reason for it.
100%.
You swerved a little bit. You did this. You did that. That is a lot of power. And I just think that it comes back to the Seattle theory. Give the people what they want. They want less restrictions. They want less emphasis on things. They want to send out mediators to this or to that. Give them what they want. If that's what they want, give them what they want. It's less work log for you, right?
Yeah.
It's less work log for you, less liability. So no one's going to tell me that it's addition of subtraction, right? So where, like, for example, in Atlanta, where is Mothers Against Drunk Driving on this? Where is MAD? Where are they, Mason? They're nowhere.
Wow. And you're damned if you do, and you're damned
if you don't.
Okay. I asked somebody that said, yeah, they should be charged. Maybe not that many accounts, but they should be charged. I go, what would have happened? Because I like to say, listen, even if something is justified or not justified, why do we not learn from it? I think there's some people that have a bad habit of saying, hey, it's justified. Okay, that's done. Let's push it away. That's justified. We're not going to talk about it anymore. Well, no, just because it's justified doesn't mean it can't be done better, right? Mm-hmm. Why would we not look at it anyway and try to, like, hey, could we have done something different? And see if there could be 7 ways to do the same thing, even if maybe out of the 10 ways that could be done, 3 are bad and 7 are good. Well, what are the other 6 ways?
Mm-hmm.
But I think the issue with that is, if we go through what could have happened, like, okay, let's say you let him walk home, and he trips into a gutter and he gets ran
100%.
Okay, so then now you're in trouble for letting him go.
Right.
Okay, well, let's say you let him drive home because it's only so close, and he hits somebody and kills him, and then you let a guy kill him, right? And then somebody said, well, he was running away, and the taser that he shot at him, it missed, obviously missed, or whatever. Just let him run away. You know who he is. That's used in some cases, but what happens if this guy that's shown complete and utter lawlessness and assault and theft and DUI, and he goes and he carjacks somebody and kills him? Because you're like, let him go, dude. It's just a DUI. No, it's not a DUI anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's assault. It's theft of a taser. It's, I don't know if the cops got injured. It might be aggravated assault. It's the DUI. It's resisting arrest. Like, at this point, it's much more elevated than just a DUI. Yeah, the DUI is what started it, but it went beyond that. And I'm not going to say whether the whole case is justified or not, but you have to look at the totality of what's going on.
Of course.
Like you can't. What is happening to them? Again, I'm not going to say justified or not justified. I'll let them deal with that. What's happening to them is unethical and almost criminal. Like, they're getting railroaded.
Yeah. 100%. It's being influenced by a political agenda, by a lot of things, and there's no due process even at this point. Now, let me be clear to everybody listening what I'm for. I'm for giving the folks what they want. And if that scenario plays out just the way you described it, and that actually gives more discretion to the officer.
Yeah.
So I'm actually giving the officer more ability to utilize discretion, because that's what it leads to, right? It's like, if I'm sitting there in front of the chief and the chief says, we're taking this, and this away, I'm saying, if I'm the union, I'm saying, well, then we have to have discretion, right? If we feel the situation escalating and verbal judo is not working, then you have to give us the ability to say, like you just said, hey, walk home. Okay. And it actually, when you relax those things, it actually works in favor of the overall situation in terms of giving the officer more discretion in the scenario. But I do believe with all my heart, there's no quick fix to this. This is going to be something that's a generational thing that's going to last for a long time, and it's going to take a lot of solutions. Like in Texas, in Dallas, they just proposed a crazy thing that was, you can't shoot someone while they're sitting in the car. So talk about how that plays out.
I saw that. Yeah,
that's crazy.
Asked some people about that. If that was true or not. And it's a proposal. I don't think that it'll be implemented, but it's definitely a proposal right now. Scary time. I think it's scary time. I was listening to a different podcast with Jocko and Joe Rogan, and surprisingly, Jocko has a lot of good insight as to how law enforcement can make better changes in training and stuff like that. The issue always comes down to money, though.
Right.
There's so many places talking about defunding the police to give more money elsewhere. But in reality, if you want to fix officer-involved encounters that you think could have gone better, we need to inoculate guys with more training, not take money away
100%.
from them. Training is one of the most important, and I harp on it all the time when I'm talking to the new guys. Listen, the agency is doing the best it can with what it has, but it cannot give you all the training you need. You're not going to be able to survive and do the right thing with that, that 1% of stuff that goes really, really wrong. Yeah, 99% of things you're going to be able to handle. But that 1% of things that goes really, really, really wrong, it's going to be much more difficult for you to handle that if you don't have more training. So you need to train on your own. You just have to. Self-defense, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, firearm stuff. You got to do it.
If I can get GunFuFighter back on the line. It looks like still recording. And we're just trying to get Mason, GunFuFighter, back on the line. Let's see. We still have him in the chat. We'll see if we can get him on Skype. We lost him for a split second. I think we had a technical difficulty. It's okay. I talked it through. We got you back. Now you were saying Joe Rogan and Jocko.
So they had a conversation about modern law enforcement and issues that come up. And Jocko had a lot of good insight as to, clearly he's done research, he knows cops, he's done ride-alongs, because he had a lot of good information in regards to things that could change law enforcement in a positive note if government itself would allow those changes to happen. You got to understand a lot of things are out of the hands of the agency or law enforcement in general. For example, a good thing would be to do training. I don't think cops get enough training. That's why I stressed it a lot with the new guys. You got to get your own training. Office cannot afford time and financially to give you enough training. They just can't right now. He suggests, hey, do easily training, stress inoculation, force sims, scenarios, constantly, all the time, shooting training. Here's you. We're short as can be everywhere across the United States. So let's say a squad that's supposed to have 15 dudes on it, and it's 10, and you have an 10-hour shift. And you're on, as soon as you get on, you're on the road, and as soon as your 10-hour shift is over, you're off the road. And there's 10 people working that area. Okay, well, how do we get those 10 guys that work, their shift for 12 months out of the year? Where in time do we take from those guys, take away from those guys? Like, hey, let's take 3 guys off the road and have them go do this training once a week. And then we'll take another 3. Well, that puts 7 guys on the road. So you're creating safety issues for the public by taking more guys off the road to go do more training. Well, what's the answer to that? Well, let's hire more guys so that we have enough on the road and we can send guys through training. How do we do that? We have to get people to want to work here.
Yeah. I mean, so it's interesting. Jocko's an interesting one. I mean, he makes some interesting suggestions. I don't know that they're. I think you and I both can agree. I think they're a little pie in the sky in terms of
100%. He doesn't have. I mean, he's obviously not in it now. He just has a little bit better understanding than somebody that's never been in it.
Like I said earlier, and I think some people would take what I'm saying the wrong way, and I think you know what I mean. I think less is more. I just view it as if you have 2 guys patrolling an area, right, and you've had that for as long as your career, 20 years, say whatever, and you have 20% more cars, 20% more this, 20%. I think the problem all starts at the root, which is in the precinct, where they're like, you got to get more tickets, you got to get more stops, you got to get more this. And I don't think, to me, honestly, I think in the law enforcement world, you're on an escalator that you're never going to get off. So you're working X percentage more now than you did when you started, right? Because there's more cars on the road, there's more this, there's more that, and the number always goes up no matter what the number is. No matter what. It's always going to go up. And I just think at some point, like, you reach a point where the court system's overloaded, so they bring on more judges. This is, it's an escalator that's never going to stop. But I'm also a believer in less government intervention.
Right.
And I'm not saying, again, to everybody listening, I'm not saying give to my Leo fans that listen. I think Mason gets what I'm saying, and I think Jiu-Jitsu Cop gets what I'm saying. I think everybody would. I'm not saying less power to the officer or less whatever, but I'm saying the reform has to exist in the system, in the overall system that we're on, the treadmill that we're on. I can't run at a 7 if I can't run at a 7. I have to run at a 5 first. Yeah. So you have sometimes these 21, 22, 23-year-old kids, and I see them out there in departments, and they go out there, and, the big moment of the day is pulling someone over, and they get, to roll up to the car, and they don't realize at that exact moment, and I think you know what I mean, Mason, at that moment, the power that they have and how they're going to affect that person's day. And how much of it is really perspective.
Yeah.
And how it can escalate.
I think there's in order to teach, we need to teach guys, and I think it's being done for the most part, but we need to teach guys what your purpose is, right? When I was taught, it was, hey man, understand what the spirit of the law was meant for, and not what the letter of the law was meant for. Why was this law written? And understand that we are here, like, protect and serve, right? That's the name of the game, protect and serve. Think about that every time you're in an interaction with the public. I am here to protect and serve. I should not be here for a revenue generator. I should not be here to appease a statistic. I should be here to protect and serve. I work for the people, right?
Right.
And I think some guys get away from that, and then that's where you have issues with, a guy being a dick on a traffic stop. Because, and I shouldn't say that, because you got to understand. You say this is going to affect them for the rest of their day. Okay, that's true. You're going about your day, maybe you're going to work, maybe whatever. Also understand that cop may be at the end of a shift. He may have taken a molestation call, 3 domestic violences where the husband beat the wife to a bloody pulp, a dead baby, his wife's fucking angry at him because for whatever reason he's not getting home on time because he's staying too late, and now he's stopping you because you just hauled up past him at 20 over, 15 over, and he's pulling you over, and you're like, what the heck, man?
Of course.
Why is this guy pulling you over? So now you have 2 people that are agitated. How's that going to go when you have a person of authority that's had maybe the worst day of his career, and he comes up and he's like, hey, what are you thinking, speeding? And you're like, it's just speeding. What has he just dealt with?
Right.
So we got to think about that from both sides.
So there's no question about that, right? But what I put back to anyone in the career is you invest your money, right? And let's say the broker fucks up and does something, invest in what you say, but it doesn't do well. Just doesn't do well. Whatever. Are you going to care about what his excuse is?
For what?
The money, losing the money?
No, not at all.
If so you always have to be on top of your game, right? That's something that's going to be debated till we're blue in the face, right? Good day, bad day. You always got to be on top of your game, and you always have to. But that stems more to where I'm going with this. It has to start at the root. If the people want less intervention, give them less intervention, but you have to have on the other side the ability to have more discretion, right?
I would agree with that. But you also got to see. I get what you're saying, but think about this: do the people want what they're asking for?
Right? No.
Or is it a small,
100%
microscopic amount of people that want what they're saying?
100% agreed.
And then most of the people are like, I don't know what you're talking about.
But as they roll out these laws and these different changes, what I think, I'm trying to come to the solution. What I think, as opposed to the Jocko solution, which involves money, which you're not going to get, which involves resources you're not going to get. I think that pie in the sky, the solution's simple. The union needs to stand up and say, then you have to give our guys more discretion. You want to take away shooting someone while they're sitting in the car? You want to take away X? You want to take away Y? Then you know what? We have to roll back these weird statistics that you give us based on stops and everything else. They don't, pressure you for tickets per se. We know that. But it's you know what I mean? And you have to give our guys more discretion. Because I have no doubt in my mind, and I know you don't either, that guy sitting in the driveway over there, and I know you described it perfect to a T, as I would expect any Leo on to describe it. But if the officer has more discretion given the environment and it was you walking up to it, you'd be like, yeah, go ahead. Go home. Go drive through a house.
Yeah, I don't know. See, that's the thing I'm saying, though, is I wouldn't do that.
But if you had the ability to have discretion given the environment you're in?
You're given these points of, like, okay, and this is every cop plays this to their head. And
the alternative's life in prison at this point.
Well, and that's why, but that's unreasonable.
Totally, I agree. But I'm saying, just like anything else, we have to operate in the environment we're in, right? So if I'm a cop in Georgia right now, knowing the environment we're in, I pull someone over, the same thing happens. The same thing, Mason. You know what I'm saying? Now, whether I have to, I'm saying, hey, see you later. Good luck. Have a good night.
But that's not the answer.
It's not.
That's what guys are going to do, but that's not the answer. Because then that guy goes and kills somebody else. Then what? Then we're back to square one, and we're hemming up the guy for letting that guy go. And now they're trying to charge that guy for letting that guy go. Well, this guy left,
but
he hit a minivan and he killed a family of 5. Now we're gonna do felony murder rule on this cop because he let him go, and because he let him go, no, we need to stop politicians from and corrupt DAs from making decisions like they're doing right now.
I feel like Bane in The Dark Knight. Give the people what they want. Give it back to the people.
And I'm Batman saying no.
Order and chaos. Yeah. So we're making the case right now, right, of exactly what's playing out, and I'm saying, I'm not saying that that's the total solution, but I think in the short run, that's where it's going to go. What I'm describing.
I don't disagree that cops need more discretion. I don't disagree with
100%.
Because I think over the years, and I can't even pinpoint.
You and I both know in the old days.
I don't know why.
You and I both
where it came from.
You and I both know in the old days, and I'm going to say some shit that can't be said, but it's got to be said. In the old days of there'd be someone, drunk in a car, whatever. Cops didn't always rip them out of the car. They drive them home. They do whatever, and this and that. I'm not saying that's right, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying the discretion is gone now, right? We enter it's gone.
That's correct.
And I think we're in a fine window where if you're going to implement, like you said, the color of the law, there is no color of the law anymore.
No. That's true. I mean,
so you have to bring back some of these things that used to exist in order to give the officer discretion. Because I've heard every argument from every police officer. They all say the same thing. I couldn't, the $20 counterfeit bill. You can't go and pay his bill because then you'll be broke at the end of a shift. You can't go and do this. You can't just drive the guy home because he's drunk because you'll be written up for this. You can't just let him go because he'll go burn a house down. You can't. There's no wiggle room.
That's true.
So you got to send him through the system. Yeah. So you have to send them through the system because that's what the system has demanded.
But where did that, here's a question though. Where did that come from?
The politics, the same thing, the same argument you're making.
No. They're in control of it at the end of the day. But where did it come from? It comes from everyone knowing too much.
Right. 100%.
We know too much. We film everything. Everything's on social media. Everything's on the news. We know too much about everything. And if in a modern time with everything being filmed, if cops were allowed to give discretion, you would never hear the end of it in the media. Never hear the end of it in the media. Well, why did you do that? Why did you do this?
That's why I think you got to roll back. You got to give them what they want. You got to roll back some of the laws, and you know, it's there's no right answer in this. Right? We're not going to find the solution in this call, but I do think having no discretion is what's killing the profession of law enforcement. The interpretation of the color of the law.
Maybe
100%, in my opinion. Because you can make someone's day or break someone's day. Make it or break it. And now, because of the way it's set up, and that's what I'm trying to get at in this conversation, is the root. And I think that's what I think Jocko kind of glazed over in his, is the root of the problem is in the loss of discretion and the inability for someone to say, hey, we got to fix this. Or hey, this is the path. You have some states where if you're caught with a dime bag, you can fuck someone's life up. If you're caught with one in another state, you can walk away. Fine, no problem, no issue.
Well, that's another thing people say. You know, they have problems with like, the weed thing or whatever. Like, hey, there's this, there's so many people in prison for weed, just weed.
Right.
And okay, so a couple of cases sent to me that I'm like, that's unique. That's the case. I had no idea. That's pretty bad, right? And it's in another state that I have no idea what their laws are, so I don't know why that guy got what he got. But here's something you have to also understand when you're looking at statistics in terms of prison statistics, guys that are in prison. Just because you're reading that, Mike Smith is in prison for XYZ, whatever, marijuana or a non-violent crime that you think is like, this guy should be out, and he's doing, 15 years. Most states have these things called plea agreements. Okay? That guy may or may not have been charged with 15 crimes. And you'll never know. He could have been charged with burglary, theft of means, carrying a gun as a felon, evading police, resisting arrest, DUI, all these things from one incident. And then when it gets to court, the judge and the prosecutor and the defense attorney are like, hey, if we added all these things up, this guy would get like 275 years. So what within what he's done, which crime fits 15 years?
Where's the reasonable?
We think he should. It's reasonable that this guy should get 15 years. Which crime within the 15 that he's committed has a minimum and maximum that fits within 15 years? Prosecutor says, "Hey, it's this paraphernalia and marijuana charge." Like, okay, well let's dismiss all these others and we'll let him plea. If he agrees to the 15 years, we'll plea him out to this marijuana charge. Is that okay?
Sorry.
And then so the guy says, yeah, that's, I'm going to take the 15 years, and he signs the plea, and they say, did you do this and carry marijuana and whatever? Yeah, I did that. Okay, cool. 15 years. Well, what does that go down as? And it's prison sentence. He's doing 15 years for marijuana. So then you have somebody that looks that up and says, Mike Smith's doing 15 years for marijuana. This guy should be released. Release him. He's doing 15 years for marijuana. That's inappropriate. You and I might agree that 15 years for marijuana is inappropriate, but that's not necessarily what every case is. So the system, if you don't understand the system, you can't understand that not everybody's in prison for marijuana.
Right. No, 100%. And that's why my next suggestion, beyond discretion and understanding the root of it, is every state, because not every state has this on every level the way that it needs to be implemented. Forget about all the dumb shit they're trying to put in. Put in more pretrial intervention.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea at all.
Put in more pretrial intervention. Okay, I know that doesn't solve a lot of the capital stuff, Mason, right?
Yeah.
But if you put in more pretrial intervention, it allows good people, qualified people that can act as mediators, arbitrators, whatever, to come in and solve some of these problems before they escalate to a court, to a this, to a that, and we're able to solve some of these issues at the root.
Well, give me an example.
You want me to give you an example?
Yeah.
Oh, I'll give you an example.
Of what you're talking about.
So you may have a situation where, and this doesn't solve the capital crime issue, right? Because capital crimes are what they are.
Right. Murder,
rape,
all that. Yeah. The wolf versus
exactly.
Making a mistake is what you're talking
So to everybody, every Monday morning quarterback, listen.
Yeah.
We're taking capital crimes off the table.
We're all the same page.
Yes.
The true
shitbag.
Of what crime is. Yeah.
Now you have somebody who is maybe a college student, okay, trying to do good, trying to make it all happen. They maybe get arrested or pulled over and make the mistake of crossing the border with a gun. Let's pick on a 2A law, okay? They go from Massachusetts to New Hampshire because they're going on a duck hunt. Or they go from New Hampshire to Massachusetts. That's a better example. And they're going maybe on a duck hunt. They get pulled over. They can do serious time at that point.
Yeah, that's so now we're getting into something that I'm extremely passionate about.
Of course.
I don't think any cop should, in the United States of America, should be arresting anyone solely on these gun charges that are simply the ones that make a criminal out of just owning a specific gun.
Because they've created a moving target. You can't. I don't
agree wholeheartedly. I don't agree with that.
So,
and I've said that 1,000 times. I know there's guys that do it, and I know there's guys that don't do it. I know there's guys that are vocally, they say in California, like, no, I would never do that. Now, I would add it to what we talked about earlier, the wolf. If the wolf, I arrested him for a slew of things, and that was one thing I could add, I would absolutely add.
Of course.
But the person that's the only charge you have is possession of a 30-round magazine. Possession of a short barrel rifle. Because you're doing 5 over and you pulled them over. Nobody should be doing that.
Because they've created in the 2A community, in the gun laws, they've created such a moving target. And I purposely chose something you're passionate about to show you an example. And I don't think people should get a pass, but I think through the pretrial intervention system, you can still course correct people, right? Because that's what it's about, course correction.
Right.
You can course correct people and you can say, hey, listen, it's not okay that you were riding around without it locked in a thing or whatever. This is what we're going to do. You know, you're going to mow the lawn for 6 weeks and we're good. But people have to learn their lesson. I'm all in agreement for that. But in part of relaxing things, like, for example, you take the domestic laws, right? Somebody's got to go. Right? Every time. Somebody's got to go. Typical domestic call.
It's changed so much. I mean, it's over the last 10 years, that's gone from somebody has to go no matter what to, well, as long as they're separated, you can write a ticket. To, nope, everybody's back to jail again. And that fluctuates based off incidents, no different than anything else. Like, if an incident happens, they're like, oh, man. Well, if it was the way we had it before, this incident wouldn't happen. Like, all right, let's fix it to where it was before. So,
and it was in the old days, the guy always ate shit.
Well, that's true.
You know, the guy always ate shit. So you might have a good guy who's working hard, whatever, comes home, and don't tell me this hasn't happened. and the wife's, screwing the neighbor. He finds out, she throws a fit. It gets weird. Cops get called. Someone's got to go.
Yeah.
Results in thousands of dollars of legal fees and all kinds of things. Now, I don't want to get off track because I'll start throwing crazy stuff out there, but I think you understand the breadth of what I'm saying. Pretrial intervention can be the solution. Like when they came out and they said, we're going to send these psychological experts out to domestics, and that's how I forget what department it was. That's how we're going to handle it. I don't think that's the answer.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is in the pretrial intervention, because then somebody can go Mason. You see what I'm saying? You can take someone, but you can say you're not arrested. We're going to take you. We're going to drop you at a hotel, whatever, and you have a pretrial intervention ticket or whatever the fuck you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
You see where I'm going with this? You can.
Well, I think what we're missing in that is that happens in a lot of states. The problem is
not all
states are created equal.
Mm-hmm.
Just like not all states are created equal in 2A, right?
Mm-hmm.
Massachusetts, New York, California, like you have states that are, in my opinion, very unconstitutional in the way they have written gun laws. So, in just like that, there are states that do a much better job of pre-trial. Hey man, you got arrested yesterday for DB, but here's what we've lined out for you. It wasn't anything crazy. You didn't hurt anyone. You broke your TV or whatever. We want you to go to anger management class and marriage counseling and sign the plea for that. And you're on probation for 5 months, 6 months. Yeah, I'll take that. All right, cool, sign. And then when you finish all this, it goes from it's expunged off your record and it's on a misdemeanor or whatever. Okay, yeah, I'll take that. That happens a lot. The problem is it doesn't happen everywhere.
Right. But I think that's when we're talking about, the Jocko thing, what you brought up, like what's a sweeping reform that could...
That's training. I was more referring to what he says about training.
I
said the job, going back to the, what you've seen, he talks about the psychological aspect of it, always decompressing training and the psychological aspects of law enforcement is, I think, not something we ignore, but it's like, what do you want us to do about it? We don't have any money and we don't have the time,
right?
Because we're short and we're handling calls of service. A lot of agencies aren't worried about tickets. They don't give two snots about tickets. Like, hey, you need to get your quota. They don't care about that because call to call to call to call, because they don't have enough bodies to give them a break. And so they're call to call to call for 10-hour shifts, and then they get off and they're like, oh my gosh. And then they go home and they got a wife and 4 kids, which they love, but that's stressful in itself. So the decompression, the training, and the psychological aspect of how he said, and I don't even think he gave issues or gave solutions. I just think here's the issues that we have.
Right.
Here's the issues people aren't addressing that I think are the biggest problems in law enforcement.
The thing is,
this, and this. How do you fix it?
I
have no idea.
The reason you'll never get those things, or they'll never be fixed, is because they'll argue those exist in every profession and in every way. And I'm just being the asshole in the room. They're gonna say that exists.
Therein lies the problem.
Therein lies the problem. So
at that point we'd be at an impasse. Like, okay, you want a solution? I'm telling you what the issues are. And if you don't want to address them, then I mean, what do we?
Because you and I both know.
Walking circles.
You and I both know. They look at you, and they see a social security number.
Yeah, that's true.
So I'm not saying it. I'm not trying to say anything out of line. Mike Cunahan said it 150 times. I'm going to pick on Mike. I've had multiple friends. That's who you are. When you retire, you do your beep beep. You get your gold watch. See you later. The next guy's up. The next guy's up. Because you know why? Everybody's fucking tired. Everybody's fucking worn out. Everybody's working 1,000 hours. That's America.
Yeah.
Work a gazillion hours till you're fried out of your mind and you can't do it anymore. Take your 2 weeks, go to Aruba, get some sun, get laid, get back in. And I'm just trying to offer you guys, and I know certain people aren't going to understand the interpretation of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to offer a solution that takes because you know what my concern is? The liability of you. Because you're my friend. I don't want to get a call one day and say, "Did you hear?" Because what fucked these guys over in Georgia, and I'm going to say it, what fucked them is they just want to point the finger and blame somebody. It's their fault.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to give the people what they want, still not suggest anarchy, but give the people what they want and say, less liability, more pretrial intervention, more perspective, more understanding of the situation, and more discretion. How it plays out on social media and everything else, like you're saying, isn't that glamorous and exciting. Well, why'd he get a pass and why he didn't? It's simple. You know, it's a simple solution. But that to me is what the union can go pounding the table for. But at the end of this, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The union's going to fail the police force. The bureaucrats that they elect are going to fail. And this is all happening in Democrat-run states.
Right.
That's where this is all happening. Minnesota, Georgia. They elected all these Democrats, and that's what's happening.
You say that because what did we just talk about? There's some states that have these laws that we don't like.
Right.
There's some states that have intervention that we like, and other states that don't. Where are the states? Well, you elected those officials. Somebody asked me the other day, how do we help law enforcement? Simple. It's a trickle-down effect. We have to elect people that are willing to stand on principle. Period.
100%.
Not let the angry mob make decisions.
100%. 100%. And I hope, Mason, that anybody out there can come up with a solution. But my concern, just so everybody understands that listens to this podcast from start to finish, is how do I displace some of the liability? Because it's the liability that's failing the guys out there right now. Because everybody's trying to point the finger and say, this person's at fault. Yeah, you did it. Yeah. You did it.
I don't know the answer to that. And in fact, in reality, anything we discuss, I don't know the answer. Like I'm just one. You and I are just one guy doing our thing. Like I don't know the answer, but I think there's not going to be one person that solves it. I think it's going to be a collective group of much more intelligent people than us that with ideas that are probably discussed and shared during this episode.
I'm sure. But at the end of the day, I think it's fun to have these conversations. I think you have to have them. You know, I think it puts things in perspective. And I think we have to understand kind of where everybody's coming from. I'll always be a less government guy. Sorry to anyone out there that maybe took it a funny way, or sorry to any maybe law enforcement takes it a certain way. I'm just a less government guy. That's a core Republican principle. It's the same reason Donald Trump put the onus back on the governors to make the decisions for each state, what's best for each state, because he doesn't rule from the pulpit, from the ivory tower.
Well, I think that's important, though. That's important that every state have their own
discretion
of what they want to do. And if you're in that state and you're complaining about it, you either vote for somebody different or you move to a state that,
right,
100% shares your values.
100%. So change gears for a second, because that's an exhausting one. We can spend, forget it. So
all day.
GunFuFighter. How did that come to pass?
Oh, the name?
Yeah.
Oh, it was more of a joke in reality. So I had, 762 Design as it's a shirt company that's been around forever. I had a shirt from them, and it said GunFu. Or I don't know what it said, something about GunFu. And I had a guy doing a karate, like a jump karate kick. And I had this guy that was a little overweight, and he had his ball cap, and he had, probably a fanny pack or something, and he's pointing this revolver with a red dot on it. And it said, GunFu, whatever. Like, hey, I know GunFu, and this guy knows karate, so I got you beat. And I thought, man, it's funny, it's comical, but in reality, if you're overweight and you're out of shape and you don't know how to fight, the gun's not going to solve all your problems.
No, not the diabetes.
If you don't have situational awareness and at least you're somewhat in shape and a good understanding of your body mechanics and a good understanding of, any gun and how it works and how it operates and how you can get it out and verbal judo and just everything. Like everything encompassing when it comes to self-defense and getting through life without, getting killed or getting hurt or whatever else. So I was like, yeah, it's funny, but like if you're in a fighter too, like that's pointless. Like that guy, that fighter could possibly kick your ass if you're not paying attention and you don't know how to get your gun out. So I was like, GunFuFighter. And plus, I was really into MMA at the time, and I was really into jiu-jitsu, so I was like, GunFuFighter, that's kind of funny. It's kind of cool, right? And then the more I made it, and they're like, hey, that's kind of a cool name. I was like, yeah, dude, whatever. And somebody asked what it meant, and I go, in reality, I think what it means is, the best gunfighter is the one that can avoid the gunfight, right? Like if I can avoid places that would put me in a situation that I need to defend myself, that would be the best case scenario. You're not always going to be able to avoid everything. You can't. Like there's people out there. But if you can think about incidents, you'd be like, well, if that guy wasn't there, he wouldn't have had to defend himself. Right? So as a GunFuFighter, your knowledge of situational awareness and your gun handling skills, and you're in shape, and you can fight, and you're a protector, you're your family's protector, and you're essentially a thinker before a shooter. Like it's not about necessarily shooting; it's more about a mindset of being aware and being able to defend yourself, not necessarily having to use a gun. Right? Does that make sense?
This is deep. It's like a whole ethos.
It is. And it wasn't. Listen, it didn't start out. It started as a joke, plain and simple. It started as a joke, a play on words per se. But the more I thought about it, and the more the more the channel grew, and the more I started watching more self-defense videos, more use of force videos with law enforcement, and talking to people and talking to family members, and like learning how many people just don't really. And without being offensive, they just don't have a clue. Like, they don't have a clue of the evil that's out there, and they don't know what to do when they found it. And then there's people that are like, oh, okay, I got a gun. I'm fine, I got a gun. It's so much more than that, and I'm sure you know. Like, it's way more than just having a firearm to protect yourself. Because if you don't know how to use it, and you don't know how it can be taken away from you, and you don't know how to use it when you have, say, your family with you, it's not just about sitting with your back to the door. It's way more complex than that, right? So it's just about thinking everything through before it happens, so that if it ever does happen, you're ahead of the game.
You got to write this out. No, I'm serious. You got to write. I'm serious. You have like a whole ethos. Have you thought about it?
No, I mean, somebody who said it, I think it was Travis Haley, said, thinkers before shooters.
Right.
And that is all that it encompasses GunFuFighter. Like, thinkers before shooters. The best way to win a gunfight is to avoid the gunfight. Like, you're not going to find me in the depths of the most crime-ridden places in the world. Like, you're just not.
What I never understood, and it stems into the conversation about social media, is I agree with you 100%. And I love that. I love that ethos. Is there's this constant search in the 2A community for what's legit and what's credible. And
that's very true.
And listen, man, it blows my mind because I call it the industry of children who haven't been hugged enough. It's 100% what it is. Because you have all these guys walking around trying to prove who's the most legit. And you summed it up. Yeah. To me, the most legit guy is the guy who never has to do any of those things, but has all the training in the world. Yet, we honor those that have to use every tool in their arsenal. Now, I get for certain jobs you have to, right?
Yeah, right.
But we're constantly searching in social media to make somebody feel less than. But in society, what I try to explain to people is, you take a look at, like we brought up Joe Rogan earlier. Look at Joe. Never threw a punch in the UFC. He's never killed anyone as far as I know. but we all like him. He would never last in the gun industry.
No, probably not.
He doesn't have enough bodies. He doesn't have enough, it's like our industry is a little fucked like that. It really is.
Well, it's funny. It brings up an interesting. You bring up Joe Rogan and the gun industry. There's a video that it goes around every now and again, and it's Joe and I don't know who he's talking to, but he's talking about fighting, right? Street fighting, essentially. And he's got a bunch of clips in it, and it's talking about like how he doesn't understand when somebody's out and they're just running their trap, like in a bar or at a restaurant, like
sure.
And he talks about you have no idea what that guy can do to you. Zero clue. He could be a skinny guy. He could be a big guy. You have no idea. It could be a bodybuilder guy that can't fight at all, or it could be a skinny guy that's
clearly the guy running his trap's never done jiu-jitsu. But go ahead.
But when you think about that and you translate it to the gun industry, there's a lot of people that will talk straight to somebody else and have no idea their experience. But I think another issue with that is there's a lot of people that talk experience that don't have experience just so that they can be credible on the internet.
Yeah. The internet's a funny thing in our industry like that. And I've talked about it a lot on this show, and I've been very vocal about it. I think that you have a lot of caricatures, right? There's a lot of caricatures. And it comes back to what a homie once said to me when I was young. He said, never pimp someone else's hotness, right? And don't ever mistake kindness for weakness.
It's true.
And some of the best guys you meet in the business, they're the nicest, most humble dudes, relaxed, laid back, never trying to prove themselves, never trying to put anyone down, never trying to, but you get these guys, and it's I'm going to come to a point. The industry is entirely affected by what theater we've been in. And the gun industry is going to go into a very interesting period right now where it's going to be affected by PPE, what COVID's laid out, and even what's going on in the first responder scene.
Yeah.
We have more new gun owners than we've ever had. And I think it's
right?
Yeah. And I think it's great for the gun industry. But I think a lot of the guys walking around in the BDUs and 47 gussets are going to be like, you know what I mean? Because I've had the conversation, Mason. I know you've listened to some of the episodes. I've had the conversation with some people. And there are people out there that think in the gun industry that only certain people are supposed to have guns. There's weirdos out there. And they're constantly obsessed with, what makes somebody legit. And I think that social media is one of the best and worst thing that's ever happened, because companies have become dependent on it. People have become dependent on it, and they're not going into enough platforms where they can have an open and honest dialogue about what the gun industry really is.
I agree.
And they're scared to death to get into things like podcasting, have conversations like we are right now, because then it doesn't look like a 511 ad.
Yeah, that's true.
It changes real quick.
Hey, podcasting and YouTube and these bigger permanent sources that people can go back and look and watch everything from the past are, I think, the future of our industry.
100%. 100%. And you and I have had this talk, and I've had this debate with companies for a long time. Then COVID hit.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden people
crushed a lot of deals for me.
And then COVID hit, and people were looking at me like I was a wizard, because I've been pounding the table for such a long time. The problem is a lot of guys that are in the gun industry come from the marketing side, whatever. They're trying to make YouTube and podcasting like a Glock 19 review. And that's not what people want.
No, you can't do that.
It's not what people want. It needs to be more like how Monster or Red Bull or other brands approach media. It needs to be more real. It needs to be more real life.
Yep.
So
ad placement is ad placement is better than I take a sip out of a Red Bull during this versus, hey, go buy Red Bull.
And I mean, who do you love on social media? Who do you hate?
Oh, I'm not going to get into that.
You don't have to say names.
No. Here, I'll give you an idea of what I hate, right? When I have an intimate knowledge of somebody's background and knowledge of a certain topic, and then I see they do a video, an instructional video that's 100% wrong, and they're only doing it for the likes and the views. And I'm like, what? Like you're literally teaching the exact wrong. Like everybody knows that's wrong, even if you're not an expert in that topic.
Right.
And I just so happen to be very versed in that topic, and that's absolutely 100% wrong. Stick to what you know, man. I am a firm believer now, and it's not that I was always this, because as somebody new in social media, a couple years ago, I didn't know what to do. So you're like, oh, fuck, I'm going to put this video and that video and this picture, and how do I do that? And I've gotten to the point where, like, just put what you know. Put what you know, put what you're passionate about, talk about what you want to talk about, and don't try so hard to appease people or try so hard to be relevant by, like, oh, I'm going to do that. Well, do you have any knowledge in that? Well, no. Well, then why are you doing that? Well, because that's what people like. No, don't do that. I hate that. You have zero knowledge in that topic. Like you, let's say they had, this extensive career and whatever. Like, tons about this. Do this. Well, that's not as sexy. It doesn't matter. That's what you know. Do that. That's the part. That's the things that frustrate me.
What do you love?
Stick to what you're good at. Stick to what you know. Don't try to be relevant in stuff you shouldn't be relevant in. It doesn't matter.
What do you love?
I love passion, man. I love people that are passionate about issues and not scared to talk about them because of, political whatever. Like the whole political correctness thing that's been going around. I like people that aren't scared to say what they feel, provided that they don't go too far and they say what they feel and then they pander a little bit to get to their audience. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like just be natural, do
genuine.
And if people like that, then they'll come to it, man. We need to stop being as fake.
I can't stand the shoot fast guys. I say it all the time. I hate the shoot fast guys. A lot of it is because if you're a competitor, I'm not talking about JJ or Max. If you're a competitor, that's one thing. That's what you do, right? Coming back to what you said, like what you do. Yeah. In our industry specifically, I hate the guys that get up there and post a video and they're like, yeah, that's 0.2 seconds and there's no context and you know what I mean? Yeah. There's no and just like you said, pandering to the likes and the views. And I say it all the time about our industry. If we were playing baseball, we'd be millionaires. I say it all the time. The problem in our industry is it's still very immature and it has a lot of growing to do. And there's a lot of people obsessed with what the other person's doing and there's not. So when I made the podcast, I wanted it to be a nod to the industry, but also be open to having folks on that are pro 2A people, pro defense people, whatever it is, whether it's jiu-jitsu, whether it's fighting, whether it's MMA, whether it's shooting. And I just viewed it as somebody needs to go arm in arm with all these folks out there. And we need to start showing who our friends are, who's in the world, who's in that world. Because the bigger you show your world, like there's a lot of people, Mason, trying to shrink our world, right? It's supposed to be the world of the guy from overseas or the guy who's a Leo. And I'm trying to show that our world is much bigger than that. But we do a terrible job of showing how big our world really is. Nobody out there. You all tell me I'm lying. You've had people literally launch podcasts and say, I'm only going to put legit people on. And it's the most idiotic statement I've ever heard in my life. It's so fucking dumb. I want to go up to them and be like, you're a fucking idiot.
Only legit people.
What? And I've constantly searched for that. And I want to ask you, because you're a guy who walks shot and everything, what is legit?
I don't know, man.
What is
legit?
I honestly, I think it's someone who exercises their rights and lives by the ethos that you laid out.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, that's a good It's a good way to put it.
So, the industry's a lot of fun. Now, we're going to have SHOT as it stands right now.
Are we?
As of right now, yes.
Well,
it hasn't been called off. So as of right now, I'm operating in the yes bubble.
I hope so.
But it's going to be interesting. What do you think about what I said about it being influenced by the theater that we're in?
How are we?
So I think we'll see more PPE. I think we'll and I both know there'll be a booth.
Mandatory masks?
No. I'm saying booths. You'll see every Tom, Dick, and Harry that has a booth is going to have a mask or like a fucking pair of gloves that, is ninja proof. And then they'll, so you'll see more of that come in. There'll probably be less.
You think we'll have to wear masks?
I think so.
To get in?
Not to get in, but I think they'll be suggested by that point. You got a lot of time. It's still you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have a lot of time. I think it'll be encouraged, not mandatory.
You gotta take your temperature before you go in?
I'm okay with that. Are you?
I don't know. I don't care. I could care less. If they tell me to wear a mask, I'll wear a mask.
Yeah.
I think it's I think we're getting a little lost with and right now with the COVID thing on. I don't necessarily agree with you making me wear a mask, but it's your business. So
that would have to come down from the governor, not necessarily NSSF, because who's gonna?
Yeah, but if they wanted you to, like if they collectively said, all the companies said, hey, we want people who wear masks to come in, then
that would come down from the NSSF.
Yeah.
I don't know that they'll do that. I'd be surprised.
I don't either. I mean, that's obviously we're talking about something that's far off, but there's a couple of events that I was scheduled to be at that were rescheduled because of COVID, and then now they're rescheduled again. So I don't know. They're we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it plays out.
Kind of far away. I think what's going to be a good indicator of what happens at SHOT is going to be what happens at SEMA if that goes.
Yeah, and then there's the Concrete Builders Association. There's a whole bunch of those are big ones. There's some big ones, and then
so I think there's going to be a few big conventions in Vegas that happen long before SHOT Show. They're going to give us an idea of what they're going to make us do.
Let everybody know where to find you and how to plug all your stuff.
So essentially everything is GunFuFighter. I've actually just started a YouTube like a month ago. So GunFuFighter, Instagram GunFuFighter. I actually started Twitch. I have like 5 followers. It's great. That's GunFuFighter as well. Twitter, I don't really use Twitter, but I do have it. It's there. Facebook, same thing. Don't really use it, but it's definitely there. GunFuFighter. So, yep.
How do people reach you? Best is DM, email?
Yeah, DM is fine usually. Yeah, I answer, and I made this mistake a long time ago. I promised myself I'd always answer DMs, and it's pretty freaking time consuming.
Yeah, you can't do that. You got to stay away from the dark ones sometimes, but sometimes there's some stuff in there you got to get to. So,
well, just recently, I'm like, I read something that somebody sent me, and I'm like, I need to stop answering all DMs. I'm just going to ignore this one.
Yeah. I think the DM thing is a tricky thing. I think you have to be judicious with your time, and I think there's a way to group answer questions. You know what I mean? You could put like FAQs in your highlights, how to reach me, how to get in touch with me, how to schedule,
Whatever.
But, bro, I appreciate you coming on. Got to get you in here live.
Yeah, that would be good. Hey, who knows? Maybe SHOT, right?
Maybe SHOT. Maybe after. You'd love it in here.
Before this COVID thing, I was always up there.
Yeah.
It's not that far for me, but obviously everything's shut down right now. And then after it was shut down, you guys had riots, so I didn't want to.
They were like skirmishes. But we did actually, two officers, I believe, got shot. One got shot really bad.
How's Shay doing,
Yeah, he's actually hanging on, which is crazy, and they're doing a fundraiser for him, but obviously he's never going to be the same.
No, no.
And they're trying to get him a specialist, I believe, to help him through.
Right now, he's paralyzed, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sad.
Yeah, it's terrible, and it was completely cold-blooded.
100%.
Mm-hmm. So it was terrible, but I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you taking the time. I want to thank all the sponsors. I want to thank Mason for taking the time. Go check him out, GunFuFighter. I'll put all the links down below. Interesting conversation, a lot of back and forth. I think we might have accomplished nothing, but still accomplished something.
That's
but
usually the way it works, though, right?
Right.
We essentially just did what politicians do every day.
Yeah, we open the dialogue. That's all that matters. We open the dialogue. That's all that matters. But when we get back in the studio, we'll have to talk more about marketing and the business and everything else and how fucked up it really is. But I appreciate you taking the time and coming on.
Of course.
All right, everybody, head over to John Bartolo's show and check out all the sponsors. I want to thank Gallo Tech, Rhino Metals, and, of course, Galco Leather.